Hello, and welcome to the Pilot Podcast, where we chat with people who have taken unique paths and have some inspiring stories to tell us. My name is Helga Brindis, and I am a second-year student at CAS Pilot. And today I'm sitting with STEFFEN MAX HØGH, who, did I say it, pronounce it
He said it just so perfectly. It was awesome.
But you have founded a sustain business.
Yes, that is correct.
Advising,
Yeah, it's a consultancy agency, so sustainable business. Sustain business is what the name is.
And then you are also an author and a podcast host.
Oh, it sounds so posh when you say it like that.
Yes, you're welcome.
But that is correct. I've been working with sustainability for quite some time. It's like I studied psychology and was actually a leader of this, youth institution for young criminal youth.
Okay.
And I was that was very inspiring work, but I one of the very important thing is that you need to have good role models when you're not doing super great. So you need to see how the world could be working if you're working with cool people who are doing things the right way, and a lot of people are doing things the right way when they go to work. So these young people, they have to get some education, but that's difficult. But when they get to the workforce, they get employed somewhere, they really learn a lot of cool stuff. So I was very inspired if we could, take the good sides of the positive psychology and combine it with the elements of having a good place to work, where you get good management, good colleagues, because it actually helps you quite a lot. And that was my way into sustainability.
Wow. But if you go a little deeper into that, how did you end up there? Because the saying that that job led you into sustainable business consulting. It doesn't really. There's not a direct line.
No, it doesn't add up. No. Yes,
So
I understand, and you're so right. Well, it's because when I was working in this youth institution, I thought, could we help them get some jobs? And then I actually quit my job and created this company called 3R Office, where we bought old office furniture in very large amounts. So it's like 1,000 tabletops and 1,000 shelves and all office chairs and so on. And then we restored it and we resold all the good stuff and made money from that. And the rest of the furniture we actually donated away, because that was a very good way to get free marketing. And instead of throwing it away, we could donate it. So it was a perfect feel-good strategy.
Yeah.
But 40% of my employees were former criminals. So it was like there I had this epiphany. I just thought that it would be empty and boring and meaningless if I just worked to make money. I wanted to work, make money, but also do good. And that's when the concept of sustainable business rose to mind. Because if we are gonna change the world, and we really do need to change the world, because it's going down the toilet right now, as you can see when you're reading the IPCC reports and so on. We really need to make a lot of changes. And I wanted to incorporate that in a business. So I've been doing that for quite some time, and I sold that company to a huge company, and I was there for 5 years, and I scaled it up in a large context. And then I wrote the book and gave a lot of talks. And when I was tired of hearing myself talk, I created the consultancy company with a very good friend. And now we're helping other companies making money while working with sustainability. And it's actually pretty difficult.
Yeah, okay. But the word sustainability, that is very often, I would say it's very often linked to environmental sustainability.
Yeah, right. You're so right.
So, also myself, when I first heard the name of your company, I would have thought it was, environmentally sustainable, helping companies become greener in some sense. But sustainable is the definition of the word is what is your take on it? Maybe.
But you're so right. This is actually very advanced, because when we're talking about sustainability and when we are looking into surveys and reports about sustainability, people often think about climate. But of course, there's some environmental aspects, but also a little bit about the social thing. But when we're using the word sustainability, it actually embraces all three things. So if we were to have a sustainable product, such as a telephone, a sustainable mobile phone, it had to be fully sustainable in a climate perspective. It has to be sustainable in an environmental perspective, and it has to be sustainable in a social perspective as well. And you have to be able to document it. And that's why it sometimes people get a bit confused, because if we're looking at, for example, an electric car, is that a good thing? Well, basically it is a good thing. It's better than a normal car, but it's primarily good in the climate perspective, because it is very good that we are using electricity to get our cars moving. But in an environmental perspective, it's not such a good thing, because we're simply digging out all of these metals like lithium and so on. So we need, and it creates like a big hole in the earth. There's nothing living there afterwards. So that's like a biodiversity problem.
Yeah.
And socially, it's also a problem, because the working conditions while making these digging out these minerals and metals is terrible. So there's three aspects. So it's a very good question.
Yeah. So a sustainable business in your book, that would be a business that focuses on all three pillars.
Yeah, but it yes, in theory, but in real life, and I'm a pragmatic guy, it's actually very difficult.
Okay.
To create companies who are it's basically impossible to
I can only imagine
a sustainable product or sustainable business. So it's like an ideal we are striving for.
Yeah.
Because we're living in a world where you could produce a super sustainable product, but it might end up being very expensive, so you can't sell it. And if you can't sell it, you can't scale the solution. So you need to do like both things. You need to figure out how can you create products that people want to buy while it doesn't ruin the planet. And it's actually very difficult, because we are simply producing far too much, and we are using it not nearly enough, and then just throwing it out. And that's like the basic problem with the linear economy. We need circular economy, but we also need to diminish our consumption, because we simply buy too much and we use too much of the planet's resources. And that's an enigma, because how are we going to keep a good economy while we save the planet? And that's the degrowthers will say that's nearly impossible. So that's why we need to reframe the economical term. And instead of always measuring things in gross product, we need to measure things in a well-being perspective. And that's so easy to say, but it's super difficult to do in real life.
And really hard to change.
Extremely
the way we
hard.
measure our society.
Yeah, because we got so many habits, and people like flying. They like to go somewhere and have a good vacation, and often we think that a good vacation that requires an airplane and maybe a lot of food and a lot of different things. But maybe we could see it in another way. Maybe we could start creating products which aren't so harmful to society and the planet, while still giving people a lot of well-being. And that's the big and fun task.
That's the exciting part.
Yeah, that's the exciting part.
Yeah. I'm curious, when you are consulting and working with, I'm guessing, mostly corporates more than organizations?
99% is companies, is corporate, yeah. So it's 50% of our customers are very large companies. The other 50% is medium size. Some small companies, but it's basically the big ones.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, have they contacted you because they are already aligned with your vision that we need to strive towards this?
I hunt them down.
These three pillars. Do you?
No. Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes?
I give a lot of talks. So people afterwards, the main driver for companies right now to make the change is, of course, companies really do want to make changes. But it is human beings, for after all, and they also think it's important to change the world for the better, but they're also pragmatic. They need to pay the bills. They need to figure out how to do this in a way they can afford and without ruining their business in a long term. But the main driver right now is all the legislation from the EU.
Yeah.
And that is really, it's such a huge thing. And so many companies are not even aware what's going to hit them, because it's great, but it's also a huge what's it called, thing for companies to take care of.
It's a task or challenge, or?
Yeah, that's it's a great way of looking at it, because far often when I meet businesses who complain about all this legislation that they have to provide all this ESG data, environment, social governance data, it's companies who haven't actually been working with it. They're just complaining because they don't want to do it, and it's not because they are lazy. It's because they got so many other things to do. But the companies who are, starting to look into it, reading a couple reports, figuring out what's it all about, listening to a podcast or so, of course it's a big task, but they grasp it. They can understand that, okay, this is the way of the future. This is going to be the salvation of any company, because you simply can't make any money in the future unless you can document that your product is within the legislation, the law, the compliance, but also that you can document that you're not ruining the planet, at least not more than others in your line of business.
And do you then often meet mindset differences, or are there mindset clashes when you enter companies that maybe, haven't at least gotten out of the narrative of this is just shit, or I don't want to have to go through the process of making my company fit to this legislation?
Yeah, and it's but one of the things we do quite a lot is we are making these educations for the sales organization, because they need to be able to communicate correctly about sustainability without greenwashing and so on. But I talk to a lot of salespeople, and they a lot of them just want to sell their products like they always done. So once in a while you meet this mindset that people just think, is this necessary? Can't we just do like we always done? But when we get started and they learn a bit about it, because it always is a question about they don't know that much about this.
Yeah.
But when they realize this is actually a pretty important thing, then they get a bit worried. But they also get motivated, because this is interesting. Okay, so maybe I can even be selling something that, advising my customer in a good way. But once in a while I meet this CEO and they're on the moon. They say sustainability, it's just a trend right now. And I must say, it's really hard to, to keep a straight face, because that's just so old school, lack of knowledge, perception, and but you would be surprised what you can meet once in a while. But that's not that often.
That's
mostly, and that's the 95% of the companies I talk to, they understand it's necessary. Some of them thinks it's annoying that it has to be them, but they know it's necessary. They don't know how necessary it is, but they understand it.
But there's also something about change that is often hard to there's often a fear of change and resistance towards it.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's basically, we always think it's change, and that people his opponent is against, but we all like change if it's something we think is a good idea. Getting a pay salary, what's it called, getting more, and you get a bonus, for example, at job. Everybody likes a bonus. That's a big change. But you're so right. But the change is when the change is happening without you being involved, without if you don't have anything to say regarding it, so it's just being thrown at you, or you don't have the competencies to deal with it, then it's a huge problem. But change and sustainability, they are such a good match, and that is one of the biggest problems in organizations. Why is it necessary? Why do I have to change? Why can't I get meat every day? Why is the cantina now selling it? Why do I have to eat vegetables all the time? And some people are bitch and whine about that, and I understand it. I'm not big on change if I don't agree with it. But that's the management task.
Yeah.
We need to be able to tell our employees why we are doing this, give them the right tools so they can deal with it, and a level of knowledge so they understand why it's necessary. So it's a really interesting question.
Yeah, we had a lecture this morning. I was just in school before I come here. And our lecturer, he said something that I at least really resonated with, which is that like it's often not actually the fear itself that we change. No, it's not the fear of the change itself that that's not the core.
Yeah.
But it's more the fear of what we might lose in the change.
Yeah.
But we often forget to focus on what we also might gain.
Yeah.
And that sounds a lot like what you're also saying. Like people are afraid what they lose. Like in a very simple way of putting it, like will I lose my meat? But you're also usually gaining. There's something we're changing for the better. Yeah. There's a reason for it.
You're right, and that's actually one of the things that you can criticize the discussion about sustainability and the climate change for, because we tend to focus on all the bad things because we have some idea that this is the right way. If we want people to change, we need to focus on the bad thing, and then they will realize it is a bad thing and do something else.
Yeah.
But there's two types of motivation. One is away from something, and the other thing is getting that you want. So getting away from disaster is a good motivational strategy, but it's also very good that you have a goal. Where do you want to go? And that's why we should, within sustainability, be much better at talking about what kind of world would we actually be able to live in if we solved all these problems. Imagine that we could walk around in Copenhagen or in Aarhus or in New York, and there were parks and there were trees and animals. It was a better place to be. That it would be more. It would be more nice. It would be the wealth would be shared in a more sustainable way. So it's not very few people who has a lot of the wealth. It's like we lift from the bottom. It's a better world in so many aspects. And I know it tend to look to sound a little politics, but it's all a matter of what kind of world do we really want to live in. And a world where we live in balance with nature is a better world.
Yeah, for all of us.
It is a better world for all of us, because we simply forget that everything we own is either grown from the planet, or we have dug it out of the planet.
Yeah,
that's where everything comes from. And right now we're violating the planet in a way that is beyond many of our beyond comprehension.
Yeah,
and we need to change that. But that's the other thing. So many of us feel like this is a huge global problem. What role do I play? I'm just me. And that's a very dangerous way of looking at it. And we do it all the time. I do it myself. And it's called cognitive dissonance. It's very important that we know that we can actually play a role, and we don't use it as an excuse. Say, it's just me. I can eat meat every day. I can drink all the milk I want. I can fly to Thailand whenever I want. I can just buy the clothes that I want because it's just me. Because we're like 8 billion people of just me.
Yeah.
So it's important that we know we have a responsibility. We also have a huge potential. And what motivates me is that there's a lot of money to be made for the companies who are changing the world for the better.
The psychologist came out with the psychology background.
I hide him away once in a while. My wife always tells me that, hide him away.
Put him on the blanket.
Yeah, exactly.
But how come you studied, what was it? Was it just psychology or was it social psychology?
It was a master of positive psychology.
Positive psychology?
Yeah, and it was brand new when I saw it, and it just felt like the right thing. I've always been one of those kids in school who were I wasn't always attending school, and when I was a bit wild, so I never fully enjoyed go to school. But when I saw this study, this master's degree, I think this is the first time I think that's something I really want to learn. And I fought my way through it, and I loved every moment of it, but it was tough. But psychology has always been very interesting to me because people is the most interesting thing on the planet. In my opinion, of course, and we're different when it comes to that. But I think people are very interesting.
I can agree with you on that.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people at Chaos Pilots probably feel that way. If you go to other kinds of schools, they might see it in a different way. But I just like people, and that's why combining sustainability and people is very interesting. So my way into it was the social sustainability was. I always felt a strong feeling that we should all fight injustice. So young people and poor people, if they don't have anything, we should do something for them.
Yeah.
But I also always had the business mindset, and that's why it's combining those two. They are not naturally allies, but they should be. You can. So that's why I created this company with 40% of the employees were former criminals, and that gave a lot of problems, but it also was very rewarding, and it just felt like the right thing to do.
But have you always had an entrepreneurial nerve in you, if you can say that?
I actually thought about studying at the Chaos Pilot school, the school.
Okay.
It's a very strong institution in Aarhus, so almost everybody knows about it. So, and I know it goes wider than Aarhus, but it was like one of those schools. They were actually made for types like me because I'm super entrepreneurial. I have had several companies. I had a nightclub for a couple of years. I had a small business where we sold clothes, reused clothes, and so I've done a lot of different things. I even had a company for 3 years where I sold first aid courses. So I was teaching first aid.
There's a lot of different things as well.
Yeah, but it's like I easily get what's it called? Not possessed. That would be a bit strong. I easily get not obsessed. I get passionate. It's like, this is interesting. But I am very entrepreneurial in my way of seeing things. But I also struggle a lot with structure. So it's like I get easily. I think things are very interesting, and that's a big. So you need to structure your day very much, and that's hard for me. Because I want to do so many things. So now I'm doing podcasts and I'm writing books and I got the companies and it's a lot of things. And I still like my kids, so I want to be at home once in a while. So we just need to make sure that we can do everything.
How long have you had that company for?
The new company is a bit more than 1.5 years.
Okay.
So it's pretty new. My companies they're pretty much 2 to 3 years, and I've a couple of times I've had the good fortune of selling the companies to larger companies and then being able to scale it. Because the truth is I get bored.
Yeah.
So it's like some people like to create the companies and some people like to drive the companies and doing the same thing and trim them, and that's not me. I'm a developing kind of guy.
You're the initiator.
Yeah. I like to develop, I like to get the things going. That's the good thing in my book.
But are there any interesting projects that you're doing in your consulting company as of now, or I think you can tell us about?
There is something extremely interesting, but I can't tell you about it.
No.
But so that's like a cliffhanger.
Okay.
But I might be doing something that I've done before in the same scale in the new company. So.
Okay.
So let's see what happens. But there's something very good. I just got them. It's going to be very interesting the next year. I hope so.
Okay.
But what we are looking very much into now is our company. We are basically helping companies with all the compliance demands from the EU, and also figuring out how to implement it in the companies, because it requires right now. They need a strategy and they need to get a lot of documentation, a lot of data, so they can show that they're actually doing something about it, but they also need to create change. So if we're looking at the ESG sustainability agenda right now, it used to be a lot about storytelling. So companies were just telling a lot of stories about how good they were, and they would just do business as usual and didn't pay attention to anything else than just making money. But now the focus is on creating data. So we get data so they can show that they're actually doing something, and creating a baseline so they can show, okay, this is how much we pollute, this is how much CO2 we are emitting, and so on. But the third step, and that's gonna explode within the next 3 to 4 years. That's gonna be the real change. Because we need to, and that's what keeps me up at night, and I can't sleep because I get so excited. We need to change so many things. How you create furniture, how you create the buildings, everything. We need to get new materials, we need to get new business models, we need to change so many things. And that's also going to be a huge psychological experiment, because many employees are going to have to change more than they want to. Many citizens of cities are going to have to change more than they might want to. Just look at now. Now we have to sort everything out, all the trash, and we have to eat less meat. And how are they going to make us do that? Well, they're going to create better products, which are more appealing without meat, but they also got to turn up the taxes, which is a good thing. So the things that are bad for society is going to be more expensive. But it all requires change from people. And that might be a bit spooky, because some people are more fond of change than others, like you said earlier. And when I go to the dark places in my mind, I could be a bit afraid that all these changes required because of the sustainability agenda, which we need to do, otherwise the planet's going to change. That's not going to be good for us human being. Could also have a dark side where some people are simply doing the Donald Trump thing, and they are, no, I'm not going to change. It's me and myself first. I just want to do like I always did, and they go super right wing. And that is something in a geopolitically perspective, which is super worrying, that we are seeing this division, that it's dividing people, countries. And that's because we get too much change in a short period of time, but we need the change.
There's actually a very big geopolitical year this year. I don't know if you've heard. I think there's like 50 like very important and big votings
elections
around the world. Yeah.
It's like a huge election year. The one I'm paying most attention to is the Mr. Donald Trump, because I can't.
It's a classic.
I get so frustrated when it comes to that. But it's difficult when people have to change much if they don't want to change. That's why it's so important that we create companies who can create products who solve the problems of the world while still making their customers happy. And it sounds benign, but that is actually a very important task, because nobody's bitching about going into an electric car, because an electric car is actually a better driving experience than an old car, many people would say. And I am aware that we're not solving the climate crisis or the biodiversity crisis if everybody still continues to drive electric cars instead of driving fossil cars. But in my opinion, and I'm very pragmatic, is that we need to start where we are and changing the world a little bit for the better all the time. Because the big steps, I'm all for a new kind of energy if you can find somebody who can develop that, but it takes a lot of time to create big, huge new ideas and get it implemented. So I'm for small changes fast instead of big changes maybe a little bit later.
That's interesting, because also a lot of the attention gets more. We pay more attention to the big changes that need to happen than the small changes that need to happen fast.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you have somewhat of a gift, like when you were talking about what kept you awake at night, and it was the excitement for all of the challenges we're gonna have to recreate new kinds of furniture and new kinds of this and that. And I just thought that's kind of a gift to be able to look at it like that, because I think there's also a lot of people, and including myself, that where it's also easy to get dragged away to there's a lot that needs to change, and there's a lot of challenges, and are we even gonna be able to start, or where are we gonna go, kind of. So I would say I don't know if I would call it idyllic.
Ideal,
Idealistic. Idealistic. But this, at least something in it that's definitely very precious to keep.
When you say it like that, I am aware that I have a very positive mindset. So it's like I always tend to look at the positive side. I'm also very focused on where can I make a change, and that's basically what the positive psychology is all about. It's like focusing on your strength. And my strength is that I'm good at developing things and I'm optimistic. I know there's a lot of things I'm not good at, so I focus on those things. And if I can be in that area, then I feel like I can do something about it. When I'm forced to work in the other areas of my life where I'm not very good, then it gets a bit more, it doesn't get as positive. But it is very important that we stay positive. And one of the worst things I read last year, it was a survey about young people, and they were like, look, I can't remember exactly the age group, but it was like, I want to say 15 to 25 or something like that. And they measured how much hope they had, and the hope was decreasing. Because I meet a lot of old people, and they tend to say stuff like the next generation, they're really gonna fix it, because they see completely different of when it comes to sustainability. But if the coming generation, they're losing all hope, because it's actually old. There is a lot of old men running companies still, and that is not a blame game I'm doing right now. But when we are getting older, it means that a lot of people in power are staying in power for a long time.
Yeah.
And we can once again look at the American election. It's a huge problem. We have these old guys, because the older you get, some are still pretty modern and can see new ideas, but you get more and more fixated in your mindset. And we really need to get a new perspective of things. That's why these inner development goals is something I'm looking a lot into.
That's the ones that have been developed in Sweden, right?
Exactly. There's the Stockholm Resilience Center. And what it basically, but the theory is basically that if we want to change the world, we also need to have the right tools within us. And I can feel that in my own life. If I'm in periods, I have too much on my plate, then I cut down on training. I cut down on eating healthy, because I'm on the run all the time. And it's like obvious that I'm not, I don't have the same perspective. I don't have the same energy to create good solutions. It's like, and that we really need to think about being more aligned with nature and with ourselves if we want to make the changes in the world. Otherwise, it's gonna be too abstract. People won't cut down trees if they knew how much they did for them. Yeah. And I really think that's important, that we start looking a bit more into ourselves. And I'm not that good at it, because I really like to work, and I really like to spend time with my family, and I really like to drink gin and tonics. And when you combine all of that, you get...
There's not a lot left.
No, there's not much left. But I do spend time in nature, so that's a good thing.
How do you connect to nature? Is it by like spending physical time?
Yeah, it is. It is. I go hunting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very, before everybody gets mad at me, I don't kill that much, because I'm a very bad hunter.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Good for the animals.
Yeah, that's a good for the animals. Because when I go hunting, I can smoke. So I'm smoking and eating candy all the time. And apparently that's not a good skill for a hunter. So I almost never kill anything. So I might say that. But then again, the food, the animals you eat, who have lived in nature their entire life, they have a great life. They are almost CO2 neutral when it comes to, because they eat what's coming out of the earth. So if we had a more, I would say, more balanced relationship with nature, then there is room for everybody on the planet. but we need to have a more balanced relationship with nature. And spend time in nature is just a great thing.
Yeah.
Maybe hold back on the cigarettes. That's like that, but that's like one of the things.
Yeah, but it's also, there's different ways of connecting to nature, definitely.
I think there's more wholesome way than I do it, but that's
I also
as far
wouldn't
as I
recommend
get.
for everyone to go out hunting, because I would be afraid of like how many animals we're gonna have left in Denmark.
It's
wildlife after.
It's gonna be
after
dangerous in Aarhus Sea when we if everybody went down there.
Yeah, but it's one of the very important things, I think, in the like talk about sustainability and the future, I guess, of like where we want to go as a planet and as a society. But it's I feel often when I talk about like connecting to nature and the importance of it, it's easy to write it up as something kind of hippie, something kind of unimportant. And I often have like
and a lot of people do.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what? A lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. So what I mean about that is many company owners, many business leaders are not in tune with what their employees are actually thinking when it comes to sustainability. And some business leaders actually want to do some change, but they are afraid that their employees aren't gonna go along with it. But when it comes down to it, and we make a lot of surveys within companies, how is the employee, how do they feel about sustainability? Do they have the right, do they have the desire to change it? Do they know how to change it? Do they have the competencies to change it? Basically, a lot of employees think that sustainability is so very important. They are starting to choose working, they're choosing where to work on, and sustainability is a big part of that decision. Because they don't want to work for assholes.
And destructive companies.
Yeah, and I really applaud that, because that is a huge thing. And of course, I can't mention any names, but I know of a couple of companies where the employees have rounded up and said to the management, if you don't do like this, we are gonna find a new place to work. And this is huge companies. And you don't have to be everybody. If you like 50 or 100 people in a huge company, and you can make very big changes if you demand that they do something about climate or something about diversity or whatever it is. And that's not a bad idea, because it is serious, and sometimes they need a wake-up call.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit rebellious.
But maybe that's sometimes also what's needed in some cases.
Maybe that's all right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all right.
But also talking about actions, like, what are some actions that you try to take for yourself on a personal level?
Well, one of the things that let's start with the bad things. I'm
none of us are perfect. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus.
No. It's fine. I really embrace that, because my primary job is working with sustainability. So people, once in a while, they apologize if they have a bottle, some plastic cup or something like that. And I'm not a saint at all. I'm not as good when it comes to food waste as I want to do. We buy too much stuff and it gets out of date, or what do you say? It's like, I really hate that. But we're very good at cutting down meat, and we're buying more and more vegan products. I'm actually very proud of that, because I love cooking food. But I found out when I was trying to cut the meat out of my diet, our diet at home, suddenly I wasn't good at making food anymore, because
it's a new kind of food.
It's a new kind of food. And that's also very interesting if you look at it in a business perspective, because it's not just a matter of getting people to taste something else and liking something else. You also have to understand that when you are creating a vegan product, you're also demanding that people try to do something else, so they have to learn a new skill. So it is quite difficult to get people to do something else if they're happy with the solution they already have. And that's why people who actually have a product which is less harmful than all the other products, and they get that introduced to the market and it becomes a success, it's really good work. Naturally is Danish company. We buy the butter called Smørbar. It's like butter, but it's not butter. And they're very good.
It's a vegan product, right?
It's a vegan product, yeah. And they're very good at communicating in a nice, positive way. And they get people on board, and they get this great community around their product. And that's very inspiring when companies can get people away from a product they're basically satisfied with to a new product they're even more satisfied with. But what I realized is that because I ate this vegan butter for so long, one day we didn't have any butter at home. But because of it has been Christmas and we were baking cookies, we had normal butter. And then I was buttering this white toast thing, and I got this. I didn't want to eat the butter because suddenly the normal butter was like from animals. It was like it didn't. And there I understood. Okay, now I get it. Why some people, when they've been vegan for so long, they simply don't even like meat. So we can actually change. That's just a great news. I'm very good at not buying too much clothes.
Okay. That's a big one as well.
Yeah, but when you look into reports, men tend to buy a lot of stuff. Women tend to buy a lot of clothes. So
that's true.
That's where we have our things. And we don't travel by plane that much. And I know that much isn't, so we still do. I'm going to Færøerne. What did I call in English?
Faroe Islands.
Faroe Islands. I'm going to Faroe Islands. I have to give talks to some banks in the Faroe Islands, and I'm flying there, but I don't fly that much. That's one of the easy wins in my life. I don't have the same hunger for traveling the world.
It's also easier when you're a part of a mainland, I will say.
Yeah.
Coming from an island.
No, I'm not sure you're right about that. You need a good canoe. I think that would no problem coming from Iceland.
Yeah, I'm going to sail to Europe.
Of course. I would have done that if I were you. Of course I would.
Okay, I'll try next time.
Yeah. It's a little more effort, please. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll try.
No, but we all do stuff, but we all need to do more. That would be my general perspective.
Maybe on that note, last short question.
Yeah.
What gives you hope for the future?
It gives me hope to see how much money is being drawn to the green investments, because what we see in the EU legislation is basically the Green Deal, is how we're going to make sure that we are carbon neutral in EU in 2050, and that requires a lot of different things. First of all, it requires that the companies are very good at giving data, ESG data, so we can see what they're doing. It requires that we have a taxonomy so we know what is sustainable, and it requires that the finance sector is showing everybody what do they invest their money in. And those three legislation combined is going to be a big change. And in the next couple of years, we're going to be able to see exactly who are investing in what, and we know exactly which companies are just fucking up the planet and which are trying to save the planet. And that's going to be very good. So it gives me a lot of hope that there is a lot of legislation on its way. And there is so many people taking this seriously.
Yeah.
And the more money we get to the green transition, the more product development and business development we get, and suddenly we're going to get products which are in fact better than the normal old products which were ruining the planet even more. But we need to do something about it, so it's not going to be a walk in the park, as they say.
No, we need to do the work.
We need to do the work, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to be scary, but we're going to pull through.
That was it for this episode of the Pilot Podcasts. We've talked with Steffen about sustainability. Thank you for coming, Steffen.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
And for the rest of you, stay tuned for more interesting stories in the future episodes of the Pilot Podcast. Thank you for listening.